love, nothing but respect. You know what we do, what we don't, what we is, what we isn't. And what we is here today, bringing you guys and girls a One Piece chapter 1074 live discussion. As you probably just heard then as well, we've got some new little cheeky sound effects, like for the stream starting page where we've got the lightning sound effects happening again. And when I first arrive, we've got the advanced Conqueror's Haki, or the Conqueror's Haki sound effect. I've got with me today Eggs for Reki, aka Daniel. Say hello, my dude.
Hello, my dude.
Hello, my dude. I've got the viz up for this chapter since we're doing this discussion late enough that the official viz is out.
Okay.
Okay. Chapter 1074, Mark 3. What a chapter. Is there anything you want to talk about straight off the bat, or do you want to dive into the beginning?
All right, can we go? Yeah, top down.
Top down? Alright. First things first then, starting at the cover page, we've got volume 30 of the German 6-6 cover story. Right? I think this is interesting, only because Judge is stabbing Caesar and not hurting Caesar, so does Judge just not have Haki?
I guess at this point, at least, yeah.
Well, we've never seen him use Haki even in the current story.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, he is a scientist, right? And his kind of idea around strength is he'll create a weapon that lets me be stronger.
The interesting thing is, I think the interesting thing is, though, he's aware of it since he talked to Sanji about it, but we've never seen him or any of the other Vinsmokes use it. Even with Sanji, outside of the anime, we've never even actually seen like the proper hardening officially. I've seen people argue about that one scene where he was dodging, deflecting bullets when him and Zoro first met up in Wano, but in the manga, you can argue that that's just because that he was so far in the back panel that it was just like how his leg was drawn. And in the anime, they clearly show it with armament Haki, but I mean, the anime is notorious for just picking and choosing what they want to adapt and what they want to include.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like that. So, I mean, no one in this panel really has Haki.
Well, Queen.
No one's hardening up. It's just gloves. Well, it's just gloves.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, I get what you mean there.
Like no one's using it right now yet. And so I could totally see an argument for Judge and even his kids as well, like you were saying, like not having Haki at all, because it's probably Judge has this like kind of elite mindset of like, oh, we don't even need Haki, like, because I mean, it was originally explained to us that Haki takes years and years and years to learn.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it could well just be that like it's like this. It's so hard to learn. Why don't you just instead just use science and just become stronger? And also, like, I mean, the Vinsmoke kids are that strong naturally that they probably like so up themselves that they're just like, I don't even need Haki. I can already beat everybody, because you know when they fight, they just join like normal wars between nations. They can smash any one of them.
True. But I will say this sort of raises some interesting things. So this is the three of them arguing over who's the second smartest person in the world. And I don't know about your take on this, right? But obviously each person here's got their own specialty, right? Like, Caesar's seemed to be devil fruit related. Queen's seemed to be like biochemistry, toxins and stuff like that. And in this cover story, at least, they're implying Judge is more like engineering and electrical, right?
Yeah.
Like his engineering prowess. But there is something I would actually say to that, in a bit of harsh contradiction, right?
Yeah.
Queen, albeit all in one body, was able to replicate Judge's tech. But that was only like the basic Vinsmoke tech. Queen wasn't able, as far as we're aware, to clone things.
Yeah, true.
On top of that, without Caesar, they couldn't replicate devil fruits. So Queen can't clone things, which was apparently like the biggest scientific advancement that the Mads came together and developed.
Mhm.
And then arguably the second biggest discovery, which was the replication of devil fruits, Queen also can't do.
Yeah. Just talking to that with Queen not being able to clone things. On one hand, I'd want to say, well, maybe he just didn't like really want to because it takes like a lot of
Effort
foundation,
and
like
money
like a
and that.
lot of machines and all that stuff. But with that said, um, wouldn't he want to clone things and then just give them all smiles
Yeah.
and then
Well,
you know what I mean? Like Kaido's literally building an army.
as far
He's
as
already hiring Caesar.
we're
Queen could
aware,
do what Caesar can do. Why wouldn't he just do it? And he
exactly,
wouldn't need Caesar.
exactly, which is actually like leading up to the point in a way, right? In a weird enough way, it's kind of like Queen is literally like the most useless person here in that regard, because
Mm.
even in terms of toxins, Caesar's arguably better at toxins
Yeah,
because of his
I guess you
poisonous
could
gas
say
manipulation.
he has the best, like the closest to pacifista weapons with the lasers, with like rapid fire
But
lasers.
Ichiji also has these.
Well, but that's as a devil fruit, isn't it?
No. The only Vinsmoke that has eaten a devil fruit is Reiju.
Oh, sorry, I mean as like a cloning power is what
Well,
I meant by that. It's not like
yes.
raw metal shooting laser.
Yes, but there's an argument to be had there that all the Vinsmokes. So first things first, right? It raises a perfect question: are the Vinsmokes all completely human in terms of like? And I know there's like when I say completely human, what I mean by that is, are they cyborgs? You know how we see Yonji and he's clearly a cyborg, right?
Yeah, but only on his arm though. He's not clearly a cyborg in any other
Well,
aspect other than that one arm.
both arms and I think maybe his legs. I think we may have seen him do it with his legs at some
Did
point.
his legs as well?
Yes, I think I could be wrong there
I
though.
don't remember that at all.
I
I
could
just
be
remember
wrong.
his thing was he just had a winch. That was kind of it.
But the thing about that is, right? We don't know how the other Vinsmokes actually say produce their elements. You know what I mean? So like Sanji's Diable Jambe, Ichiji's Sparking Red, Niji's Denki Blue, right? Like the lightning, electricity. They just kind of can activate it on their body. And even Queen, like, you know, talks about this as like, oh, only Lunarian can do that, you know, since it's fire. And it's like hinted at that, like, oh, Sanji might have Lunarian DNA, but then at the same point in time, it's like, okay, then what species can just spawn lightning on them? Mink? Okay, I can see an argument for that. What about Ichiji, who can just spawn light? You know?
Yeah, true.
So there was never a hard set in stone, like there's never been a hard set in stone thing of what the Vinsmokes are actually capable of, what the alterations and augmentations to their body was. We know exoskeletons are a thing, but we also don't know if there's
enhanced strength,
enhanced strength, recovery, exoskeletons, and then those elements. But we also know so Reiju didn't get any of those augmentations.
right?
Because she was already born before Judge started working on those augmentations. But she still has certain augmentations, which means post-birth, Judge altered her in some capacity to give her stronger durability and stuff like that as well. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, we weirdly enough, because each Vinsmoke is so segregated in their abilities, we don't actually know if maybe Sanji is part cyborg and doesn't know it. Same with any of the other Vinsmokes. You know what I mean? Like,
I get you.
there's no like they clearly reference that it's just the lineage factor, right?
Yeah.
But again, the whole problem with the lineage factor thing is, like, remember when Yonji takes Sanji down and Sanji first learns about the clone army, because Sanji didn't know about the clones as a kid. right? And he says, our father's a genius who, alongside Vegapunk, discovered the meaning of the lineage, like discovered the lineage factor and how it works. So that all it's hard to say whether or not that's accredited to all of Mads or credited to Vegapunk and Judge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
But it's also heavily implied that that lineage factor is actually what's used for devil fruits, to make devil fruits. At least the smile variations I've seen so far that Caesar was making, right? Like the SAD is like the augmentation of lineage factor that you know, drip feed into crops, which the Tontadas did, and cultivated like 1 in 10 fruits bore fruit as a smile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like the Vinsmoke's abilities could be half the lineage factor essentially of a devil fruit without any of the repercussions to not be able to swim. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
or
true.
it could be they just have DNA of species that can produce fire, like a Lunarian, electricity, like a mink, and then somewhere out there's another species that can just spawn light. You know what I mean? Or there's also the potential that they're actually like all semi-cyborgs, or maybe not Sanji. Maybe their DNA. So like you know how they develop the exoskeleton sort of thing, right? Maybe because Sanji never developed that, they left it, but then they could have done further augmentation to the other siblings after Sanji leaves, enhancing them further, potentially making them cyborgs. Because the way Queen sort of describes it, like, it was clearly depicted that Queen was sort of like all the Vinsmokes in one, but at the same point in time with Queen, it's sort of like, obviously you see that he's more of that, like, more of the cyborg in that regard. Like, realistically, you'd say he's more like Yonji than he is any other Vinsmoke. I could see that. In his ability, you know what I mean? But at the same point in time, it's like, you didn't see Queen using, like, Sanji's fire and stuff like that. So it's like, part of it's up in the air there, you know what I mean? Whereas with Caesar, like I was saying, at least Caesar was able to recreate the smiles, even if it's to a lesser extent. Like, he wasn't making high quality smiles like Vegapunk would, but he was still making smiles. Like, that's still better than 99% of the other scientists in the world. Whereas like Queen and Queen's tinkering is sort of just like, like, put it this way, right? If you took away Queen's Haki and Queen's Ancient Zone, what separates Queen from, say, a Pacifista?
He's got rapid fire lasers. I think that gives him like a really big plus.
Okay. I personally think the new Pacifistas are going to have rapid fire lasers. And
that's possible.
The reason I think that as well is going back to, remember our big breakdown of Film Z? Yeah. And how Sanji had rapid fire lasers in that movie?
Yeah.
And how I was like, well, if Frank, like, at that point in time, it was like, if Frankie's got this, it's because he learned it during the time skip, and all Frankie did in the time skip is Frankie actually never, like people got to realize Frankie didn't surpass Vegapunk in the time skip, right? Mm-hmm. So all that Frankie's potential growth did, which is getting these lasers and stuff like that, is just catching up to Vegapunk's creations, which in turn are still moving ahead of him in the form of the Seraphim. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
So it's like, I can see it where, like, okay, maybe you can turn around and say, all right, Vegapunk hasn't used the rapid fire lasers, or, I mean, you got to remember pre-time skip, right? When Drake had only just become a supernova at the point in Sabbaty, right? Like, he was fresh off the turncoat, theoretically, because he was undercover, right? Remember his whole thing where he was like, what the shit? Vegapunk's already replicated Kizaru's laser? So it is implied that, like, Vegapunk started working on the laser tech just before Drake leaves the Marines for undercover work. And then so it's like Vegapunk in like 6 months made light lasers enough to work for the pre-time skip pacifistas, which weren't rapid fire like a machine gun, but they were still semi-automatic.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, I don't see a huge jump to say that he, considering Judge and Queen already have done it with both of their creations. And so far, Vegapunk's been shown to clearly, anytime he tries something that one of these other people do, he just does it better. I'm kind of sitting here and I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm starting to think that the pacifistas have got the rapid fire lasers too, and it's just not been shown because they're never put in a situation to use them. Maybe.
I mean, I could totally see that these ones do.
Yeah. The Mark III.
I just don't. Yeah, I just don't know. Like, I don't know if it's been shown that the other ones.
Yeah. Which, that being said, we're 15 minutes into this episode. Let's go on to page 2. Far effing out. We have the introduction of the Mark III pacifista, the namesake of the chapter. We've got the world government officers trying to take out said pacifista. One of them has a straight up RPG. Shoots this pacifista. The pacifista has a bubble shield that comes out of its hand, right? That not only takes the damage, but if you continue to look up to the next page, it redirects the damage back. So it changes the point of explosion. So it like tennis rackets the explosion away, essentially.
It's like a repulsion field, basically.
Yeah, which
even for explosions, like not even just for mass, but also for like force, I guess. I
gotta ask your thoughts.
It's very similar. I think, yeah. So my thought basically is, I think it's basically the same as Akuma, or it's like it's an adapted version, like Akuma Paw.
So do you think this is? Do you think this is partly, say, the green blood, in effect? Or is this a full new scientific creation?
I think it's a full new scientific creation, because I think if it was actually his fruit, then it would be more paw based. Like, it would straight up just be a paw.
Which is perfectly fair. So if that's the case, then could we see these bubble shields on more than just the pacifistas coming up?
Yeah.
Like, you know how we were talking a couple of weeks ago about the armored guard units that went after Weevil? Imagine if, say, the new armored division, armored corps of the world government or the Marines has these bubble shield technology built in.
Yeah, could totally see it.
And that could be really busted against like fodder tier people as well, because obviously we don't know how these work, what their limits are and stuff like that. They do talk about how these Mark IIIs are far superior redesigns of the prototype at Marineford.
Yes.
To the point that we seemingly skip the Mark II altogether.
Yeah, it's actually weird, yeah. Mark II is just kind of...
unless the original pacifistas that we knew are the Mark II.
Okay. And it could also just be like during the 2-year time skip was the Mark II.
Yeah, it very well could be.
Just like we just weren't active during that time.
Now, these things, although they're going to be... They're already talking about how they far surpass them, right? The original pacifistas, like, if I were to, like, throw them out as a rough, like, threat level for people, I'd put them around the 200 mil range. The reason for that is half the what am I saying here? Half of the Supernova pre-time skip were like on death door fighting one of them. You know what I mean? And they were all sort of around that, like all ranging above 100, below 300 range. You know? It's also...
I think you could even put it above that. Like, I honestly think that the Supernova took them out as a bit of a...
flex?
Like a narrative thing. Because realistically, like, I mean, that laser shot would have probably one-shot
see.
almost any of them.
This is a thing where it's like, I think all the pacifistas technically have the AP of a Yonko with the Kizaru laser, right?
Yeah.
But
So okay, wait. We got to be careful with that though, because just Kizaru's normal laser probably isn't his like biggest hit, right?
I think his normal laser is just as potent as it needs to be. It's just not as flashy as other attacks that Kizaru could do, per se.
I don't think that his base laser shot is like equivalent to like an Elbaf spear.
No, but I would
because we've called it, oftentimes we've called it like a Yonko level attack or an Admiral level attack.
Yeah.
And it technically is, but I don't think it's his like absolute best.
No,
like,
it's not his Bajrang gun sort of thing.
Yeah.
But what I would say is, because it's based on his Devil Fruit and not him alone, right? The AP alone, even just from one of these lasers, is like plain and simple. It's no different to having been attacked by a Yonko or an Admiral outright. And the reason I'll stand by that as well is one of these was taking out top members of the Topi Robo.
Yeah.
So it's like, you've got, like, we've seen it one-shot people up to 500 mil.
Mm.
Anything above that, and you're, like, getting into the top Yonko commander to Yonko range already. You know what I mean? But that's kind of the point of what makes these so threatening in my eyes, right? Because they're kind of simple in the sense that it was like, yeah, they've got the AP, but they don't have the tactics and the brain to be super threatening against top tier people in that capacity, right? Maybe in a sheer numbers game they could be, where it's like you're getting attacked from so many angles, it's just like, ugh, it's annoying. But what I will say is, when they're talking about far superior redesigns, right? Obviously, they've changed the way they're dressed. There's 50 confirmed of these Mark IIIs, which I don't know about you, but we knew that there were at least 20 of the original ones back at Marineford, because there's a panel with at least 20 of them in view. Mind you, that's after Luffy that's after the people at Sabaody destroy some.
Yeah, sure.
So they probably, I mean, they have at least 20, but they've probably got like around 50 of the originals and then 50 of these here. I wonder if they've got any of these in circulation policing anywhere yet around the world, or if these 50 are all of them of the Mark III and they haven't been rolled out yet. If that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Because obviously the pre-time skip, when we dealt with the pacifistas, they were under the lead of Sentomaru, right? So it's you can't even say that, like, pre-time skip, they were just being shipped out to guard islands on their own already. It was like it was literally research and development for the the special science group here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, just because there's a few of them, we don't know if there's more. There could possibly be more, but at the same point in time, this 50 may be like the ace in the hole that, like, the entire surplus that the world government has. Which, mind you, is very threatening, because I would say even just having this bubble shield alone makes them far more threatening than the ones we saw pre-time skip, because the biggest thing pre-time skip that they were dealing with was they had no good defense. If you could overpower the pacifista's body, you could pretty much beat them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
To the point that I even argue sometimes, you know, when obviously all the other Supernova were fighting the pacifistas, and we never really saw results of it, but they were doing like okay. But then when the Straw Hats fought it, we had every single Straw Hat do their best attack one after another to defeat one. I do kind of like lean on an argument there that because of that, from a narrative standpoint, and it was being shown like that, obviously it was being portrayed to be like that strong, but at the same point in time, you can't cleanly say what attack necessarily beat that pacifista, since everyone didn't attack and there was no break in between.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like Sanji's, mutton shop potentially could have beaten it. Like, the Diablo Jumbo could have beaten it, or Zoro's Usher could have beaten it, and then Luffy's Gear 3 could have beaten it. Like, you don't know what one attack was enough to have defeated that pre-time skip. But you do know post-time skip, 1 Gear 2 punch is taking out a prototype pacifista. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah.
So, I'll be interested to see how these fare against someone like Luffy now. Obviously, Luffy's still leagues above them, but it's like they're saying that these things are like so much better. It's like, is Luffy still going to one-tap it with a Gear 2 punch with no fancy haki?
I mean, I think they already have a bit of a spar against this thing. The police dude.
I think that's slightly different because these are the Pacifista Mark IIIs. That was a police unit, I think. Hang on.
I would have thought that would be the same model because it's in the same uniform, isn't it?
No, slightly different.
It had the 3 on it, yeah, but it had like the black and white color theme.
It said police on it, and you could say that means it's the same model, or you could turn around and say that just means it's like like one of the originals, almost. If that makes sense. Hang on. I'm back a few chapters now looking at it. Okay. 1064, we see it, and it's slightly different. Even has a different hat, but 1063 will be the one that actually has it properly. 1063. There we go. I can click on that, and that should be good to go. Oh god, I almost forgot that Cracker got frozen.
Frozen?
Yeah, do you remember that?
Oh yeah, true.
Cracker got wiped out by Aokiji, which, I mean, we may get the Katakuri-led Big Mom Pirates go after Blackbeard. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, they'd fall victim to the same mindset of the payback war, wouldn't they? Yeah, so 1063, page 5, you see the other pacifista, and they're very different, this other pacifista, this police one. So it's got police branded on its chest. I'll bring it up on the stream. It's got police branded on its chest, right? But more than that, it's like you can see the mechanicals in its like bicep, and it's got huge shoulder pad armored plating. Almost like it's got like one of the shinobi bulletproof vests sort of thing going around it. Also, important to note, that's its left hand and its mouth. So something that I sort of was picking up on then, right? So see the bubble shield, how it's in the right hand?
Yeah.
I wonder if it doesn't have a laser in the right hand anymore to facilitate the bubble shield.
Right.
Left hand and mouth, because we know they can shoot from the mouth as well. Left hand and mouth is attack. Right hand is defense.
Yeah, I can see it.
Which may be like a healthy balance for not necessarily power scaling, but like a healthy balance of being like, you got to sacrifice a bit of a bit of offense for defense in that regard.
Yeah.
But I love the designs of these things. Do you? The only thing that's messing me up is how tiny Kuma's head is on his body in that bottom right panel where he first uses a bubble shield. Like, dude is 99% trap.
Bro's got big shoulders.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Alright, moving forward though, in the Viz was very different to the Scanlation this week, right? So, you know how in the scans, Sentomaru was like, the Marines keep calling me, don't they know I've already turned coat?
Yes.
In the official Viz, he says, what worries me now is that the Navy keeps looping its communications to prevent us from getting any updates. I guess they suspect I'm a rebel.
Oh,
which is hugely different context.
way different. Yeah.
Which actually makes the Marines look a lot smarter in that regard as well, because we know that they're bringing essentially a buster call, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, obviously, the Gorosei member, which may be the downfall here for Sentomaru by sending out these Mark III pacifistas, because, like we talked about, Saturn technically has the overarching command for the pacifistas, or at least the Seraphim.
Yeah, sure.
But moving on, the pacifistas straight up pacify the world government people here, and Sentomaru gives them the clear order that Luffy is going to take Dr. Vegapunk on his ship. Your duty is to see them off safely, right? And then he tells the pacifistas to keep an eye on the horizon. This actually brings me to a potential hyping thought here, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a couple of these pacifistas on the shoreline looking out and they see the Marine ships, are they just going to start immediately firing on them?
Maybe.
And if that's the case, one of two really crazy things is probably going to happen. One, we get Kizaru just jump up, do a Yamasaki Sacred Jewel, and he just counterfires and just demolishes a heap of these pacifistas, right?
Mm.
Or, if a Logia's awakening is in part controlling the element to a greater extent, what if we potentially see Kizaru's awakening and he can stop the lasers coming?
Be interesting. I still don't think they have awakenings though.
The Logias?
I don't think the admirals are awakened.
Really, you don't? That's actually very interesting to me. Because at this point in time, I would say like the big thing that I'm sitting on is whether or not because we know they've all got advanced armament, right? But you know how it's like really up in the air about Conquerors?
Huh?
It would be interesting to see if the admirals don't have advanced Conquerors and instead have awakened Logias. Because Fujitora is the only non-Logia out of the admirals, the poor bastard. I mean, mind you, he's got a busted ass fruit, so is what it is.
Mm.
But that's interesting. I didn't realize that you didn't think that they were awakened. That'll be cool. That'll be interesting.
They've got nothing to tell us that they're awakened.
No, that's fair. That is definitely fair. I mean, even stuff like Punk Hazard's just people speculating and putting their own theories in it and taking it as fact.
Yeah.
The only reason I hold off on it is because the world government has like a monopoly on awakenings at the moment. Like they've already got like 7 or 8 awakened zones.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just feel like there's too many awakenings kicking off right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be that common.
If that's, I mean,
another thing is just that, like, I don't know, like the admirals can just be insanely strong without them. You know, like
if that's the case, then does that mean you don't think we're ever going to see an awakened Logia?
I don't know. Maybe him.
Maybe him. All right, moving on. We've got Luffy, who's been running all over the place looking for Bonnie and Vegapunk. I'd like to point out, so you see the panels with the logic shaka of Vegapunk looking at the terminal?
Yeah.
I noticed that there's 2 sections that he's looking at that have got crosses on it. Right? You can't really see them both here, but one's in between him and Usopp, right? I'm assuming those places with the crosses on it are the places that the cameras have cut out in the lab phase, right? But okay, moving on. First thing, gotta talk about this for a minute. All right, Zoro's fucking full body might guy, but the biker drip. Thoughts on Zoro's outfit?
Zoro's got a sick outfit, and it's kind of, I don't know. I give up on Sanji. Zoro's cooler.
Just keep downplaying Sanji too much. That like you can't even help the boy anymore. The Hawaiian shirt is cringe. Let's be honest here.
Oh, dude, I love the Hawaiian shirt, but it's not Zoro dripped out like a biker, like a space
just
biker.
Don't have that drip. Yeah.
Right. Even
So wait, did you see what they did in the anime with the stars are here?
Oh, where they had Zoro outpace Sanji.
It wasn't like in the thing. It was like, oh, the wings of the Pirate King or whatever, or like let the stars take the stage. And then this one, it's like the real star is here.
Yeah.
Star symbol.
Yeah. So and then Zoro cuts a beam of light.
Yeah.
And then outruns Sanji running full speed.
Yeah.
This is why I don't take the anime as canon. Like the anime canon and the manga canon, two different things. They just straight up are. I
think I'm just gonna get on the
Zoro bandwagon while you can.
Yeah, I'm gonna get on the Zoro hype train because it never lets you down. Whereas the Sanji one is just like you're just constantly trying to argue for Sanji.
No, but that's the point of the characters, isn't it? Like Zoro's just there. Yeah. He's just stoic. He's always cool. Sanji's got cool moments, but they're moments.
Yeah.
You know. But yo, Stussy's outfit with a little bit of the side cushy. But the thing that I fucking cannot get over here. So seeing the big messy panel. Brooke is at eye height with York, the eat, sleep, shit, repeat Vegapunk. He's at eye height with her panties, and my man is looking at the ceiling. My man's like, I ain't got no permission. I haven't asked the question yet. I gotta keep eyes up front, Sailor. Like, dude, I'm like, the one time, freely, everyone's just walking around in panties. And my dude's just like, I don't have any eyes. Like, do you know how gutting that is to me?
It's true, gentleman.
But also, didn't realize that Vegapunk was that huge. Like, twice Brooke's height.
True.
Brooke's like 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
There's a big girl.
Yeah, the size things are real wild with Oda. He's just
they always are
pushing them more and more.
Alright, so on this same page, this is where another huge translation thing comes in. Alright? So, starting in that messy panel, we have Shaka, right? We're suffering two anomalies at the moment. Brace yourselves for this. One is the disappearance of the Stella. The other is the loss of control over the Frontier Dome. What do you mean? I mean that we are no longer able to leave the Labo phase. Excuse me? You can assume that if we try to get out, we'll be killed by the lasers.
Yeah.
So, I know in the scanlation for this, he said someone sabotaged the Frontier Dome. And obviously, with what happens later on in this chapter, it's like, okay, there's a traitor amongst us. We've got to start playing the Guess Who game again. You know what I mean?
Right.
This one here, though, is a lot more like they're oblivious to the fact. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I kind of took it this way. I kind of took it as just like we don't have control of it anymore. I originally read it.
So when I originally read it, I was picking up on the idea because like obviously, originally I thought it was Stussy that let them up, because that's who Vegapunk called. But with the way this chapter goes, obviously there's still a traitor in some capacity. Although I've got a few different theories on this whole traitor thing at the moment.
Right.
But going through, right, we've got but we're supposed to be taking Vegapunk off this island. That's true, but the man himself is currently missing. So what can we do what you can do to help is find him. In the meantime, I'll figure out a way to repair the dome. Yeah, but what's the point of looking for Vegapunk if even your all-seeing monitors don't show him? Then we get another close-up of the panels here. And so, again, this is a point here where I was talking about, see how there's two rooms with an X on them where you can't see images?
Yeah.
I think those are just where the cameras have cut out. So one of those, which is connected to the hallway, which is probably the one in the middle, is probably the Kuma pad room, right? The paw room, PAW room. But, as the group split off and start looking for him, also, just before we get to that, actually, yeah, I love the little gag in here of like Zoro, like, I guess I'll go search, and Sanji's just like, no, like Sanji starts genuinely crying. Like, who's gonna look for you though when you get lost? And like, you got Chopper being like, yeah, dude, stay here. Even Robin's like, be a good boy, won't you? Just stay put. Like, the condescension for Zoro there is actually cleanly insulting. Like, I thought that was freaking hilarious. I was nearly in tears, eh?
That's good.
But then we get this sick panel of Luffy and Zoro just chilling on a couch over the two of their, like, claimed victims, KO'd on the ground. And I couldn't help but think back to, I don't recognize Straw Hat as a Yonko. Now my boy dead at his feet. Like, dude.
Yeah.
I almost
love that they're just like chilling. They're just sitting around.
Turns out they can actually wake up at any time. They're just playing dead because they're like, I don't want an ass beating again, man. It ain't worth it. This ain't it. I mean, both of them are awakened zones. They should be up, like, literally, they should be up at any moment. They just ain't it. Like, what? It was like 4 chapters it was like 4 or 5 chapters back in Impel Down that it took for the guards to get back up. These guys have already been out for like, what, 2 chapters? 3 chapters? 3 for Kaku, 2 for Lucci. So like next chapter, man, next 2 chapters, they should be waking back up in the thick of it.
I mean, a lot of people were saying that they think that they are awake.
Oh yeah.
They're just kind of like, they know that if they get up again, they're going to catch these hands. So they're just kind of like padding for time.
I mean, look, at this point in time, wouldn't you just be staying on the backdrop and you'd take out Stussy first so you can't get done dirty again?
Yeah.
Like, any of those sneak bites is just going to put you way out. It ain't worth it, bro.
Also, I would also say that, like, if it is that they are still awake, that kind of gives a bit of credence for Stussy being the person, like the triple agent or whatever the hell you call it, or double agent.
That would be interesting, but I mean, that could actually be it.
Because basically they're sitting there, and Luffy's like, "Oh, I wonder where Vegapunk is. We need to get him here." They're just laying on the ground, like, "Yeah, bring him here.
Yeah,
just get up and kill him."
True, and I mean,
run.
she even says, like, Susie even says herself, "I'm worried about the Stella. I'll search for him myself."
Yeah, right.
So it could be. I don't know if that would be the case, but I mean, I'm never gonna put it past Over for the triple agent. Like, the dude just it's like what he did with Pudding. He's Pudding good, he's Pudding bad. Well, she's just got BPD. Alright, so next we get the Kuma flashback. This was probably my favourite part of this chapter. Took up the most time in my reaction. I was just enthralled with this. It's so little yet so telling. And I was freaking emotional as hell reading this, hey? The Viz as well is like a little more clean with the dialogue for it. But thoughts on the Kuma flashback here?
I mean, it still hasn't shown us everything yet. I still feel like there's a little bit left.
I kind of feel like we're going to go into a couple of chapters about it, eh?
Yeah, totally. We can keep getting flashback, and I think what I was saying to you a while back would still be up in the air. Of like, it could be that she finds out the whole thing, and then it's not until later that maybe she's on the ship when we're sailing out of here. She goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, this is what I found out about."
So,
like, they could extend the flashback to just multiple chapters in a row, but could just extend it for a while.
I think we're gonna get this, maybe not the focus of every chapter, but we're gonna get this paralleling, and this flashback will end the chapter that Kuma reaches the top of the red line.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
And I think the purpose of that is, so just running through it here, Bonnie wakes up in a memory world. There's a boy sitting in a field randomly crying his guts out. Also, interestingly enough, you can't see a clear image of him, really. Like, you see him hunching over and crying, right? But you don't see his back properly. You know?
Yeah.
If you actually kind of look back when, like, in the first panel when Bonnie sees, like, a figure in the distance in the field, it almost looks like Kuma's got a straw hat on his back.
Yeah, right.
Which could be interesting. But the thing that gets me here is Kuma's obviously crying. Bonnie comes up and is like, "What's the matter, kid?" You know, and then she realizes who it is, right? And then she can't get any closer, but she's like watching this memory play out. Kuma's screaming, help me, I can't take it. And these two figures come up and say, "You get back there right now. If you escape, they'll kill every last one of us." And he's screaming, "I don't want to go back." And so a third person also shows up with them, which you can see under Bonnie's arm when she's running up there. "Don't send me back to that horrible place. Crying isn't going to solve anything, you enormous brat. Go back there, then kill me here instead. Why bother going back? I'm just going to die anyway." And then obviously they beat him into unconsciousness and seemingly drag him back. And we sort of get a quick, like, scatter shot of, like, further on in the flashback. So it goes from the field to a castle to two ominous figures. And then, like, Bonnie can't take anymore and she gets ejected from the memory, right? Those last two figures, they appear to have the same haircut style of the Celestial Dragons. But more importantly, if you actually look at their silhouettes, they both seem to have the same bucket hat that Kuma wears as an adult, including they seem to have the same clothing style that Kuma has, of, like, the collar turned up big jacket.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, the only thing that doesn't lean into these being Celestial Dragons is you can't see a bubble around their head, right?
Hmm.
But we also don't know where this flashback's taking place. This could be in Marijua, for all we know. You know what I mean? It's possible that Kuma was a slave in Marijua and then left to another country. In fact, let me actually pull up an image of Marijua to have a look at it and compare it to that castle. Because that could almost look like one of the corner towers of Marijua. If you're looking at that.
Okay.
In fact, that looks near well identical to some of the aspects of it. Pangaea Castle. Not like, so you know how there's the castle, like that huge ass castle in the middle that's Pangaea Castle, sorry?
Yeah.
It looks more like the castle. Remember the gate that Bonnie ran through in the Reverie?
Yes. Yeah.
It looks more around the architecture of that sort of setup stuff, if that makes sense. But
I mean, it definitely wouldn't surprise me if it was there.
But yeah, we were just looking at that because, like I said, at this point in time in the story, right, we've got to figure out what Kuma's reason for joining the Revolutionaries is. Obviously, this flashback's going to entail that. Right here, being in a grassy field with nothing in the background, really kind of originally I thought this was the Sorbet Kingdom, but having a look at this actually just looks like it's a green pasture around the outside of Marijua. You know what I mean? And Kuma was a slave that escaped and the other Slayers have had to go get him and drag him back, otherwise they'll all be executed.
And then where I'm guessing it's sort of maybe leading is that he does end up running away, and then they all get executed, and he's the only one left.
But at the same point in time, it's also potential that he may take out a celestial dragon or something. I don't know. Maybe that would be going too far, because I'd probably kill him for that. But like I said, those two figures that look like celestial dragons, and you know the stereotypical celestial dragon haircut, right?
Yeah.
You can clearly see that on one of their heads there, the one on the right. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah.
Like, if you look if you look up like Saint Roswald, Charlos, all those people, they've all got that exact same haircut, you know?
Mm.
But, if you're looking at it, like I said, if you look at Kuma's actual design, which you can just turn the next page to see how he's got his bucket hat?
Yeah.
That bucket hat looks like the bucket hat that those celestial dragons are wearing.
Yeah, I can see it.
So, I wonder if Kuma... We know that the original 20 kingdoms that formed the world government, right? We know that they all originally had kingdoms down in the Blue Sea. I wonder if the Sorbet kingdom was the original... that strain of celestial dragon was the original rulers, and the mark of ruler or leadership is kind of like that hat, that, you know, that fashion sense.
Okay.
And so maybe Kuma, having escaped Marijua and the Red Line, ends up going to the Sorbet kingdom and then like taking over. Maybe it originally started as like a revenge thing as well, because they did originally call Kuma the Tyrant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
Maybe it was a hostile takeover, but he himself isn't a piece of shit. I think it's very interesting though, but whatever it is, I think, like I was saying a couple of weeks back, with Kuma like struggling and climbing to get to the Red Line in the current timeline, and the way his flashback is showing him trying to get away from slavery more than anything, I think the saddest thing is we're going to get his flashback in parallel with him climbing the Red Line. His flashback is going to be he hated slavery more than anything, and probably we're going to see we're probably going to see the individual that suffered the most from slavery in the story, in Kuma.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be juxtaposed with him getting to the top of the Grand Line and bending the knee to the Celestial Dragons up there.
Yeah.
You know, going back to his former programming as a slave, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've got a different route you think that flashback's going to take. Say it.
Yeah, like I think we spoke about this one last week or last time we spoke. Yeah, and I think it's definitely plausible. Like I think it's definitely like probably the likely thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
very impactful.
Especially the way this little flash is going as well, because like honestly, he looks like a simple giant sort of thing, and the way he's just being beaten by these other people, which to be fair, you can't even blame them in a way, because if it's like, you know, if they get killed because he doesn't come back, how messed up's that going to be?
Yeah.
So yeah, which also would add a whole new layer to him being a warlord as well, because think about how many times as a warlord he's been invited up to Marijua. Like Kuma's introduction in the story was him arriving at Marijua. You know, so definitely a complex thing there. I can't wait to see how this sort of ties in with Dragon. The only thing is, I don't know if like, so Bonnie trying to force her way through this story here, right? I think is purposefully trying to parallel the nothing happened moment, right? Which would mean if Bonnie comes with us from Egghead, I think it would be fitting if Zora's the person that finds her in here. Despite him not meant to have been going anywhere. You know what I mean? Because
okay.
I feel like the only person that would understand what she's kind of going through right now would be Zoro. in that regard.
I could see like an ironic, everyone tells him not to go anywhere because he'll get lost. He goes somewhere anyway, does get lost, but he happens to, only because he got lost, find the people that they're actually looking for. No one else that actually knows where they're going can find it.
Which, if this is all of Kuma's memories and not just those childhood traumatic memories, she would also be the only person, once consuming those memories, she'd be the only person out of the crew that knows about the nothing happened moment as well.
Yeah, true, actually.
Which could bring her and her trust for the Straw Hats closer, but also her trust for Zoro, which it's important to note, pre-time skip at Saturday, as a Supernova, she was the one that was like paired up with Zoro, saving Zoro from the Celestial Dragons back then.
Right.
So it may be leading into a Zoro's the only person really here that can understand her, even though it's not taking in Luffy's pain, like the physical pain. Zoro probably could understand the toll of taking in this emotional pain in that regard.
Yeah.
So the two of them would have that same kindredship there. And it's also interesting that it's like, last time they met up, Bonnie was like, don't you dare hurt a Celestial Dragon. This time around, she might be like, kill all the Celestial Dragons, do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which would hurt, but be very interesting, I think. That being said, up next, right, we have Bonnie. So obviously she's talking about like, this isn't something I can bear unless I'm truly ready for it, but I can't move ahead unless I knew the truth. Please, Dad. So she goes back in and starts taking the rest of the memories. Meanwhile, we've got the other Vegapunk. I can't remember his name specifically, but this is Flare. Is this Edison's the little one? Lilith. What did you think this one was?
Lilith is the really tall legs one, long legs one.
No, that's York. Lilith is the evil one, the one that kind of looked like Sanji's mom.
Yeah, isn't she hella tall and got long legs?
No. The one that's hella tall is York. That's the poopy one that gets heaps big BMI. I'll just look up all the names of the Vegapunk. This is the only Vegapunk that I can't remember. What?
Yeah, this is the one that, like, I remember when I looked at this photo, I was like, I don't even remember him being a thing.
Pythagoras.
Yeah.
There we go. Right. So this is Pythagoras, which is the Flare, the creative genius, right? So he's looking for the stellar body, and you hear a katok behind him, and then there's a second katok, and then an explosion, and it's obviously implied that he was shot in the back, right? Now, I think there's one of two things that have happened here. Two or three things that have happened here, right? If you go back 4 chapters, which I easily can from here. No. So 1071, I think. Is when they're all... Yes, okay, 1071, right? Page 1213, is when the Frontier Dome first got taken down, right?
Okay.
Pythagoras was the one at the control, and... So, Pythagoras and Shaka were the ones at the control pads. Shaka was like... who did that? And he was like, oh, it was, it was, must have been someone from the controller, but it appears empty, right? So he specifically goes, Shaka, the Frontier Dome has been restored, but we can't, sorry, wait. I'm a page in front there, Frontier Dome deactivated, and then Shaka's like, why? Who did that? What's the meaning of this? And we see York and Lilith in the background, so clearly they didn't do it. right?
Yes.
Then you have Lilith turn to Pythagoras. Is someone in the control room? Pythagoras. No, I don't see anyone on the monitor. But Pythagoras is at a monitor himself. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you cut later to the Frontier Dome has been restored, and you can see that Pythagoras almost looks a little nervous, although he always looks nervous, mind you. Might just be his character. But theory one is Pythagoras, which is the flare, is the one that's sabotaging these things. Maybe because as the flare of Vegapunk, he thinks it's best to stay with the world government. Potentially.
Okay.
Since all these satellites are different aspects of his personality. You know what I mean? This may be one as the flare that's trying to, you know, maybe dramatically like look after himself, and you know, I can still work for the world government if you just will allow me and me alone to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which, bringing it back to this chapter, so in that same page, so 1071 on page 13, you also see Lilith with the like laser gun that she's got that you've seen her running around with constantly, right? And you can hear her try to load it, and it goes cha-chink, right? Now that's not the exact same sound effect that's used in this latest chapter, but the katok sounds like the clicking of a gun sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think what possibly could happen here is it's a misdirect where it makes it look like it's implied that like Lilith is going to kill him as the traitor, hence evil Lilith, right?
Alright.
And it may be betrayed that Lilith is the traitor, but in actuality, I think it's probably Pythagoras that's the traitor. And she's noticed him doing strange shit, and while he's looking for the real Vegapunk right now, she's caught onto him doing something sus because he's off on his own sort of thing. And mind you, the others are off on their own looking for him too. But it's like he looks sus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Lilith may have been like, he's a traitor, I'm going to take the shot, and they may try to play it off like Lilith is the evil one, whereas in reality she was the first one who caught onto it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Alternatively, my other thought is potentially a huge shock is that the Daft Punk one, Shaka, is the evil one. And the reason he's sorry, I shouldn't say evil. He's the one that's betrayed them, right? Because he's the only one that we can't see the face of, so we don't really know what his personality and expression is, right? He's always been at the controls this entire time. He seems smarter than the others, and as the logic one, he may see that there's no logic in trying to defy the world government right now. You know what I mean? So it again plays on the same sorts of things. Other than
that idea of like being purely logical is not necessarily like good.
Yes. And so Lilith, who's portrayed as evil, but she's also like way more emotive. You know what I mean? I could see it play out either one of those. Did you have any thoughts on who it was? If it was a third person outside of those two?
I mean, no. I think out of all of the, I think if it's not one of those two, it would have to just be like not one of the dudes themselves.
There is a third possibility.
None of the actual stellar thingies.
There is a third possibility that I've seen people floating around because we haven't seen them for a minute, and that's Caribou.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
is he going to be that consistently a scumbag?
Well, okay, here's the logic behind that, right? Bonnie goes into the Kuma memory with Vegapunk yelling to her, "Don't do it." Bonnie comes out of the memory and Vegapunk gone.
Right.
Caribou knows Vegapunk worth a lot of money. Caribou, since introduction, been kidnapping people for money.
Fair.
Caribou sees the real Vegapunk and goes, "Mine!" And is now desperately trying to think of a way off the island. And mind you, remember, he can store anything inside him. So that explosion against Pythagoras could just be him, like, using a Gatling or throwing a gun or something. Like, throwing a bomb or something like that.
Yeah, that he's had for ages, yeah.
And he's just, like, trying to escape sporadically while he's got Vegapunk inside him. Which is clearly dumb, but it's dumb enough that it's Caribou.
Exactly, and he is a dumbass. And the thing is, even just like narratively, you see him like joining the Straw Hats necessarily.
I mean,
he's basically just like another Caesar, right? Like all the Straw Hats hate him.
I would love for him to join the Straw Hats solely because I think we need a shit Logia on the crew, but also because I think we need a black sheep of the crew. You know what I mean? Like, remember when we were at Marineford and Buggy was like... And, you know, for a lot of people, Usopp's probably the black sheep, right? But, like, in Marineford, when, like, it came out that Buggy was part of the Roger Pirates, and, like, Crocodile and Ivankov and Jinbei are there, like, all talking amongst themselves, like, I guess every crew's got a black sheep. He's just clearly the piece of shit from that crew. And ever since then, I've been like, I want a piece of crap on the Straw Hats that has no reason being there outside of they just don't want to kill them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like someone that just gets dragged along because they literally have nothing better to do. And Frankie kind of had that when he was part of the Underground, but he dropped that really quick when he started being like really like passionate and like, you know, gets really emotional about stuff.
Yeah.
Glitter says, would he risk trying for Vegapunk? Would he risk it for the biscuit? It would be a very soggy biscuit in that swamp of a man. But I could see him trying to do it. You know what I mean? Especially,
I could definitely see it. I mean, I can see that as like an explanation for
what's happened.
Purpose.
Yeah.
Of like why he's been dragged along this long. Because if he's not going to join, I don't see why he's been dragged along for this long.
In which case, as well, you got to think about it in the sense that it's like he knows where two of the ancient weapons are, and if he also has Vegapunk, and like we know he's been trying to get back to someone to give them information. If he's like the 10th Titanic captain on Blackbeard's crew, that'd be hilarious. You know, like he's straight up useless, but at the same point in time, he brings two ancient weapons and the world's best scientist back.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the inverse of Jack. You know, Jack had all this hype. It's like, you know, it was just bad circumstances, but he was just trying to do this and trying to do that. He spread himself too thin, man. He was doing too much at once. Meanwhile, Caribou, literally just trying to be self-sabotaging, falling upwards with the likes of Buggy. But,
we got too many falling upwards characters, holy shit.
Yeah, we do. It's at the point now where it's almost not a gag. It's kind of just like, if you're stupid for long enough, good things will happen.
Yeah.
Which brings us to... Did you have any more comments, actually, on the Caribou thing? Any other thoughts?
Not really. Yeah, I can see it happening. Obviously, it's not guaranteed.
At this point in time, it's kind of like, I've got no idea what's going to happen outside of things.
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing. Love, though, that just getting so much given to us.
I love that it's
constantly getting told you know, all those secrets that I've just never been sharing forever. Well, now you're just gonna get them all. Here's Kuma's backstory. Here's how Devil Fruits work. Da, 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 da. Like, you're just getting all.
Kuma's backstory, I think, genuinely may be one of the best backstories in the story. Here's a before we move on to the last bit. Here's a quick question for you. What do you think's the best backstory in the story? What's been the best flashback?
This is like my thing. I don't know why anyone else doesn't feel this way, but I friggin' loved the post-war arc.
Post-war arc?
Flashback.
I actually recently reread that and it had me bawling, eh?
Seriously, it got me like so emotional because it was like you just lost Ace, and then you start hearing about Sabo, and it just like drives it home even more because then it's like, oh my god, he had another brother who also died. And it's like, well, that means that now he's got nothing left, and it just makes it so much worse. It's just...
You should reread that again, because it's actually really odd in the sense that, why is Dragon there? Why is Dragon present at Go Kingdom?
Right. Like, why does he happen to be there at that time?
Yeah, there's even actually a moment where he's like, oh, like when he first meets Sabo, someone's like, are you ready? And he's like, yes, I'll go do the preparations now. And he disappears, right? And then the next time we see him, he's on the ship when Grey Terminal's burning down, and like they blast a hole open in the Grey Terminal. And it's like, if anyone wants to fight for freedom, join my crew and get on now, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it could just be a simple fact of like he's a revolutionary. He got a tip and heard that you know the nobles were really messed up in this place.
But like I said, rereading it, it was odd that there's that scene of the prep, like I've got to go do these preparations, and then that's in the middle of the capital. And one thing that really stuck with me is throughout that whole flashback, they put a lot of emphasis on the royal family of the Go Kingdom, right?
Right.
But we've never seen them. They were always in silhouette, and even in the silhouette, their face was blocked off.
Right, okay.
So we have no idea what any of the royals look like. And then obviously Sabo was meant to marry into the royal family, and instead Stelly did, right? So we know since then that the king and queen have mysteriously vanished, right? Like mysteriously.
There is more there than it seems, eh?
Yeah.
Like they even specifically showed Stelly later at the Reverie. Like they full on made him a character, you know, like.
And he's now the king after the former king and queen mysteriously vanished. It's like I said, I only reread this flashback the other day, and like rereading it, I was sitting there, I was like, we're coming back here, some way, shape, or form. We're coming back here, and there's more to be had here. Because like the whole, like I said, the whole thing about Dragon going, I've got to do the preparations. To me, it doesn't make sense for Dragon to be saying, I've got to make preparations if, say he's got a devil fruit, right? You know how that wind blast goes through Grey Terminal and it seems like it's part of like a devil fruit or something? It doesn't make sense for him to need to prepare for that. When it's just him on the shoreline just goes, bang, come join me, bye.
Yeah.
Right? Also in that flashback, the revolutionaries are staying at Zoro's dojo, getting supplies. And it's heavily implied that Zoro's sensei, Kushina's father, is a member of the revolutionaries as well. So there's a lot of stuff still in that flashback. Let's just kind of like, you're cooking something. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm gonna like the taste of it, but you're cooking something here.
Really cooking something.
Yeah. All right. That being said, going from said conversations about flashbacks and revolutionaries, we get into the double-page ending of this chapter with Big D News Morgans. So, Vivi's alive and safe and sound. Do you know what's hilarious about this? Back in post Zoe, when Vivi was heading to the Reverie, remember when she's like on the top of the mast of the ship, like in the lookout section? And, like, her attendant's, like, yelling at her, come down, it's dangerous up there.
Yeah.
He says 3 very important things, right? He says, what happens if a big, weird bird comes and takes you away? Right?
Right.
Or, what happens if a world-famous marksman has you in his sights? Right?
Okay.
Or what happens if a meteor comes down to destroy you?
Okay, that's weird. So Sabo is 1, Vivi is 1. What's the go with the marksman?
Well, I would say big news is the bird.
Yeah.
The marksman, you could say either Yasop or Van Orga, since Van Orga can teleport.
I was thinking Van Orga.
Yeah. And then the meteor is probably Fujitora.
I thought the meteor would be Volusia Kingdom.
Potentially.
Sabo.
Potentially.
So I'm thinking maybe that's like because basically it's like, and after that was said, it was like one person got abducted by News Morgan, another one got nuked from orbit,
and the other.
And then marksman is yet to be seen. I mean, maybe it could be a reference to Kobe getting abducted by the Blackbeard pirates, but that's a bit of a stretch.
Maybe. The problem is, if that's the case, I would say those three things would have to link directly with someone at Reverie.
Well, yeah. Wasn't Kobe there?
Kobe guarded
arrived
people.
And then left, yeah.
Yeah. Also, is it weird for me to say that it's like I'm kind of happy that Wapple's back in the story? Like,
fucking hate Wobble so much.
No, okay. Hear me out for this. So he's scared for his life here, and he says, "Keep your voice down. What if there's a wiretapping transponder snail, and the government learns we're here? They'll their goose will whack us next, right? Their goons will whack us next. Sorry. And remember, last time we saw Wobble, or heard from Wobble, was post Reverie breakup, where he was calling Morgans to be like, I got a scoop. And at the time, it seemed like it was something to do with, like, VV being killed.
Yeah.
Clearly now that's not the case. So the scoop may be that Wapple may be aware of him, potentially.
I don't know. That's big, though.
Okay, maybe not him, but obviously something nefarious happening in the world government that he thinks is essentially going to get him whacked. But think about this, right? What was... So Wapple's arc, Drum Island, right? Was essentially a story about a bad king that took doctors away from the sick people, monopolizing the doctors, and then turned them against the people in that regard. Right? Wobble never really had a comeuppance. Luffy beat him up, yeah. And he lost Drum Kingdom, yeah. But then
he got famous and rich.
And then he founded his own kingdom again. So he never really, like, copped a lesson. Yeah.
To be fair, Buggy did some heinous shit and never copped it either.
I mean, to be fair, Buggy's nefarious. Buggy's nefarious. But what if the plotline here for bringing Wapple back? Because also, it's really important, right? Wapple was introduced in the same arc as a Straw Hat and potentially one of the final villains of the story, Blackbeard. And Ace. Mm-hmm. So, when the concept of Chopper, Blackbeard, and Ace was formulated, Wapple was also being thought of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
So it's like, the fact that he's coming back here and is being relevant in any capacity, to me, I'm like, I wonder if this is going to turn around and be a long con lesson for Wapple, making a much shittier villain from early on have nuance later on, in the sense that, okay, he is now he's now no longer a king. Like, obviously he's the king of the evil Black Drum Kingdom here, right? But it's like, him snitching on the world government here is going to result in him losing his kingly status from the world government and need to be in the protection of Morgans. Because the alternative is, right, keeps his mouth quiet, which he hasn't done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know he's, like, too stupid to keep his mouth quiet about stuff, right? Option 2 is he's seen something messed up and he told the world government, he's like, oh, I know about this. And they're kind of like, loose lips sink ships, bitch. We're gonna end you. Why'd you tell us? You know what I mean? Or alternatively, he's just taken it straight to the media because the only chance he had at staying alive was, this story is so messed up, I have to tell the news outlets because the only way I won't get assassinated immediately is if the whole world finds out at once. You know what I mean? But I could definitely see like a real long con redemption arc for Wapple here, coming full circle and feeling what it was like to be under the threat of an authoritarian ruler. Him obviously being the authoritarian ruler. Right? The 20 kingdoms being indicative of the 20 doctors that Wapple used to lord over everyone else at Drum Kingdom. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just don't like him.
Oh, I mean, dude,
I don't want him to get anything.
Dude, he's annoying as shit. Honestly, he was actually like a messed up villain with the way he was like tormenting people. He was just the definition of like. Oh, also, dude,
I actually feel like Foxy would grow on me before he does.
Really? Do you know what's funny though? How old do you think Wapple is?
Sure. I don't know, 30s, late 30s, 40s.
Okay. When he first showed up in the story, he was 27.
Okay, that is pretty young.
He's around the same age. Oh, he's older, obviously, but he's around the same age. He's only like 10 years older than Vivi.
But he put on that much mass in 27 years, eh?
Puts it on, loses it. Remember, he's got the munch fruit, man. Man,
yeah, I'm sure he's got the munch.
Ooh, actually, scratch that. What if the Blackbeard pirates want the munch fruit?
Could they possibly want that dog shit fruit for?
Well, you can eat people and combine their devil fruits.
That's kind of broken. Oh. His fruit is like the best fruit ever for not the captain to have.
Yeah, best fruit ever for your like cabin boy that really wants to impress you to have. But I mean, to be fair, that's kind of like the same thing about the op fruit, isn't it? It's the OP devil fruit, but you don't ever want to be the one to eat it if you want the immortality surgery.
Yeah, true.
But yo, imagine that. What happened? Do you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me right now of the end of Reverie when Im had 3 photos that he'd cut up. Right?
Okay.
Blackbeard, Luffy, and Vivi, wasn't it? Was there anyone else there?
That I know of, not that I remember.
Maybe Shirahoshi? Hang on, I've got to look this up. Okay, it was Shirahoshi as well. Okay. Okay. There we go. Guess who hasn't shown back up in a second?
Hirohoshi?
Yeah. If we've just gotten Blackbeard versus Law, Luffy's obviously about to get a Buster Call thrown on him, and Vivi's coming here. Do you know what would be really interesting? If, like we were saying, if say Fujitora gets sent to hunt down Vivi, right, and Morgans, Fujitora might assault them in the air, sort of thing. So you kind of got an aerial naval battle where you got like Fujitora's ship that can fly and their ship that's obviously a flying news coup ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got like an aerial battle, weirdly enough, because we've never really had an aerial battle in One Piece, right?
Yeah.
You could have a cute little aerial battle with Fuji trying to get them to obviously try and get VV and silence Wobble. While at the same time, some nefarious shit's going down to try and take out the fishmen under Merijua. Or specifically Shirahoshi. Because that's something that, like, no one's thinking about right now. That if you're looking at those thematical ties, Im was like, Blackbeard, Luffy, Shirahoshi, and VV are my targets right now. And who have we just gotten in the story at the moment? VV, Blackbeard, and Luffy.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I could definitely see like a 11-hour switch up right now, and we cut to something really messed up happening to Shirahoshi. Because also, I don't know how Dark Oda would take it. You know what I mean?
I don't know though, because she's got to be Poseidon, right? Like,
but Fishman Island's supposed to be destroyed within a year from the beginning of the time skip.
Yeah, but Luffy's got to sort of be there.
Or someone with a straw hat's got to be there.
Yeah, I guess.
What is there a giant version of in Merijua?
But did that figure look like a giant? Because I thought it was fairly scaled to like normal person.
Oh, it clearly looked like Luffy, but that could just be like... I mean, we don't necessarily see the vision. We just heard her explain the vision.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? It's not like... When they say a man with a straw hat will destroy the island, we didn't just see, like, Luffy punching the island apart. We just saw what looked like Luffy's silhouette and fire behind it, and her screaming. But I mean, we don't even know if Luffy destroys Fishman Island or if Luffy's just present for the destruction of Fishman Island. If that makes sense. Like, because we didn't see the vision, it's like, did she just see Fishman Island destroyed and Luffy standing in the rubble? Or did she see Luffy beating the shit out of the island and, like, personally destroy the island? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, right.
So, it could be time for that to sort of come back into circulation there, where Fishman Island gets destroyed and Luffy doesn't find out about it until he goes back there. Which could work as well, because the last time we saw the last road poneglyph was at Fishman Island. So they could have hidden it somewhere at Fishman Island, so Luffy's got to travel back there to get it.
True.
Something's cooking. Something is cooking. I just don't know what it is. Right. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Any theories or anything like that?
No, I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm all good.
Looping back a bit. If I was to say that the OG pacifistas were like a threat level of 200 mil, I know they say they're far superior now, but I'd probably say based on these ones, I'd probably give them like 250, 300 mil as a threat range. But it depends on if their physical body has been like amplified heaps as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I get you.
Like if they're like bloody 10 times physically durable, it's gonna be like, okay, they maybe, you know, if they can take a Gatling, Gatling or even a Kong gun. If one of these things can survive a single Kong gun, I'll be like, shit, okay, you got a point. You know what I mean? Because it's like, are they going to be more durable than the numbers? Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, true.
Otherwise, it's kind of
I mean, here's the thing, though, is like, I don't see them getting past, like, just generally all the defenses and stuff. It's like, even if they aren't, it's durable as the numbers.
Just like with the bubble shield, it's just kind of like they're a bit harder to get at to destroy.
Yeah,
a bit more tricky. Which, I mean, dude, Usopp's going to be shitting himself now because the one thing he had going for him with sniping these things is going to be like, they got a shield.
and it also repels as well, like it bounces back. Like Usopp.
Alright. As always, though, I will mention that the Labo phase is still at 100%, and we don't know what that means. It's potentially actually that 100% means that the Labo phase is armed. Because that same ring where that number is where they're trapped in.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it might be like the defenses are at 100%. So once like someone unauthorized lands on the island, it like starts charging up until the defenses get to 100%.
I could see that.
Other than that, this chapter was pretty straightforward. Like I said, it was a good chapter. It's just like it gave us answers without any fleshed out answer. If that makes sense.
I'm pretty happy with where the story's going right now. Going pretty smoothly.
I'm actually like kind of sitting here and I'm just kind of like, this is probably. I want to ask a question. I don't expect an answer for it, but I will want an answer one day from you, right? What's the best stretch of 10 chapters in One Piece? 10 consecutive chapters.
Oh, I think I already know that.
What's your answer for that? The gear.
No, I reckon like the opening. When
the
Luffy
roof piece
comes in. Yeah, when Luffy comes in and hits Kaido with a red rock, is the first chapter, and then the 10 after that.
1000 to 1009 or 1010.
Yeah.
They are 10 phenomenal chapters.
I remember us watching them and being like, "Oh, this is
10 out of 10 every week. 10 out of 10
every single week. It has been 10 out of 10." I feel like I remember us saying something like, "The last 10 chapters have all been 10 out of 10."
Yeah. They were all good chapters. Personally, I'd probably say the middle half to the end of the Odin flashback for me.
I just really didn't give a shit about the Odin flashback.
You didn't?
I find it interesting. I just didn't care about Odin. Like, he's already dead. He's not.
Oh, dude.
He's not like one of the legendary. He's not Gold Roger. He's not Whitebeard, and he's already dead.
But in that, we got Whitebeard's story. We got Roger's story. We got he laughed and Laughtail. We got the bounty of all the Yonkos. We got the rocks. The story of rocks.
I've changed on bounties.
Yeah?
I reckon bounties are a really cheap way of making a good chapter.
That's... I see where you're coming from with that. Having a bounty revealed in a chapter doesn't immediately make it a good chapter, but what I will say is if you've got a good chapter and you have a bounty reveal in it, it's a great chapter. If that makes sense.
I just mean, like, it seems like they could release, like, 4 Yonko bounties in one chapter, and then that could be kind of basically it. Like, the whole chapter could just be literally nothing but bounty reveals. Everyone in the One Piece community would be like, that was such a fucking sick chapter. Like, it is exciting, and you should totally be excited about it. It's cool. It's really awesome when one comes out. But, like...
I mean, you gotta remember...
The cheap way of getting like that's the thing. Like, I'm saying it's a cheap way of getting a good chapter because it is objectively a good chapter. It's just an easy way of doing it.
I don't know, because like I said, the
it's like people. It's like when Luffy beats Kaido, like the chapter that Luffy beats Kaido, and everyone's like, "Wow, that was an amazing chapter." It's like, of course, it's when he beats the big bad guy. You know, like the chapter that he beats Dofi is like, "Wow, that was a great chapter." Obviously, you finally beat Dofi. You've had 100 chapters leading up to it. You know, I don't know. Whereas, like, I think to me, like, the really impressive chapters are, like, ones that aren't as easy to make good. Like, I love the entries. I love, like, the really cool entries into a battle.
Because I think like you could just make it a normal entry, but when you like hype it up and make it really epic, to me, it's special.
I was actually having this conversation with Glitter the other day, where we were trying to come up with what are the best entrances in One Piece, right? And in your mind, have any of them surpassed? Because like there was a thing going around a couple of weeks back about the Naruto in the Pain arc, his arrival there, and like people being like, nothing has surpassed this entrance to this day. And then,
I had actually argued that the Madara entrance was more iconic than that.
Really? Oh wait, with Madara showing up.
Yeah, Madara showing up at the war and beating the shit out of like all those scrub ninjas.
Honestly, I like the Naruto entrance at Pain. I look at it fondly, but at the same point,
I think it's probably objectively better. But I think like the Madara one is like well more hyped. I reckon.
I look at it fondly, and I do love it, right? And I'm a huge fan of Naruto. But what I will say is having that entrance in the Pain arc, it's just a puff of smoke and a dude and 5 toads show up. It's cool because of what it means. It's cool because you know it means Naruto's about to fight Pain. But as an actual like showing up to a battle, it's not that cool.
And he's just got a power up, so he's coming in with a big power up, and
like Glitter's even saying now, like Ichigo in the Blood War is premium, right? Like I'll agree with that. When Ichigo pulls up in the 1,000-Year Blood War for the first time, right? The hype meter for him physically getting there and how badass he like this. You know the stereotypical like stoic, like the badass main characters here sort of thing. Like that hits a lot harder than just toads. You know what I mean? And again,
I think also like going on our subject of like a bit of like a cheap win, like an easy win.
Yep.
Having an entry after a massive power up, I think is a lot easier to be epic than an entry just in general.
Yeah, it's the reason why I wasn't a huge fan of the Fisherman Island arc the first time I experienced it. Like one of my friends loves it. He thinks it's his favorite arc. I've never met another person that thinks that's the best arc in the story.
Yeah,
right?
I haven't either.
And their view set for it was like the exact same but opposite outcome to mine, where he was like, yo, they've just come back from a training arc and we get to see their powers and they're just so badass. Meanwhile, I'm there just like, they've just come back from a training arc, they don't have to lift a finger.
See, I think that, I think maybe like the One Piece equivalent of the start to the Pain arc is Luffy punching the Pacifista. Right, like him coming back, he's just been training for ages. He's come back with this new big power up. He's got Haki now, and he like dodge lasers and one shots the Pacifista. It's kind of similar with Naruto's thing where he's just come back from training in the Toad Realm or whatever it's called. And then he comes back and he's like, I'm a badass now. Haha.
Yeah, like again, it's hard because like even like just talking in One Piece alone for the minute, right? I remember certain scenes very differently to how they play out as well. Like, have you like? Obviously, also like the series has been going for 20 plus years, 25 plus years, right?
Yeah.
So there's multiple adaptations of the exact same scenes. So some of them are different, right? But like, dude, I was thinking back, trying to think of like my favorite entrances in One Piece, and I remember how hype I got for Alabasta. The war's happening. All the guards have just been defeated. Vivi's dad's been crucified. Crocodile picks up Vivi by the throat and walks her over off the balcony of the castle and is holding her off. And he's just like, I'm sorry, princess. You've lost. And then his hand turns to sand as she's like trying to reach out and grab him. And she's grabbing the sand and her hand's just going through it and she's falling. And she just starts screaming. She starts making her way down. No one can hear her scream because the battlefield's going on, and you get that uplifting music. And you know the music I'm talking about, the dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like the Superman theme, right? And you get Luffy flying from, like, blinding light, but because he's in the sun, ironically, the sun god's flying from the sun, right? On Karu's back. And swan dives and grabs Vivi, only to do a 180 and Luffy to jump off and hit Crocodile for the first time.
Yeah.
I remember, like, and obviously, like, going back and rewatching that scene, it didn't play out 100%, or at least the version I saw didn't play out 100% like that. But from my memory, that's what it was, and I was like, dude, that is fucking one of the best. Like, it was one of the best entries because not only was it just like, you've got a dude punch an intangible dude. It was badass. The music was intense. The setting was intense. The emotions was there. Like, it was ticking off all the fucking boxes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that as amazing. But Glitter at the time was like, oh, clearly the best entrance in One Piece is Luffy at Marineford. And I was like, that was...
That's a good one.
Like, it's a great one, but at the same point in time, I'm like, I didn't even think of that. You know
Actually,
what I mean?
It didn't really stand out, but it is good when you think about it.
So, like, and like, when I say an entrance, I'm talking about an entrance here, not an introduction. If we're talking about who's got the best introduction in the story, can you really say anyone's beaten like Kaido?
I don't know.
Is
I think
Kaido
it's
the
really
best
under
introduction?
personal preference. I think I can agree that objectively it's really good, but for some reason it just doesn't feel amazing to me.
Like, the build up. The man tried to end himself. He got captured and this and that.
Yeah. I do love a voiceover.
Falls 10,000 meters into Kid's base.
In an attempt to kill himself. Okay, actually, here's the thing. I think the reason why I'm a little bit on it is that they never went any further on the whole he wants to kill himself thing. It just became like a whole null point. It's really weird.
Yep. I actually am a little bit hurt by that. Ooh, my camera's just
I think if that was actually a main part of his character and all that stuff, it would sit a lot better with me.
See, the problem is, right? Suffering from success and self-sabotaging isn't the same as trying to kill yourself. Right? We were sold someone that was trying to end themselves, and we were delivered someone that was self-sabotaging. Someone that we know was capable of dodging, but would refuse to dodge to take on attacks head-on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Someone that, there's a safe argument to say that if Kaido wanted to, he could have done a hell of a lot more against Luffy. You know what I mean? But, based on, their macho personalities, it played out obviously how it played out. That is cool, but that is not the... imagine if Kaido was, self-destructive in fighting. You know what I mean? You know how he does the flame dragon at the end? Imagine if Luffy completely overpowered that and instead Kaido comes back in his hybrid form with a flame dragon cloak around him. And it's he can only fight for a brief period of time because while he's in that form, it's just going to melt Onigashima. So Luffy's got to try and get him off Onigashima. And that's one of the things where it's it burns so hot that he can't stand it for too long. It's self-destructive. His hobby's suicide. His hobby is can I become more durable so that this thing doesn't hurt me? Sort of thing. Just a different play on it. Yep. Because the way it was played off, it's kind of just he's an emotional drunk. And that's why he does it.
Yeah.
You know, he has a bad day when he's drunk and he just goes, ugh. But it's I don't know. I don't know how you can go from someone as complex and layered as Dofi and then introduce this character that you're they're going to be layered and complex and just go, oh, I can't be bothered to do it. Let's just give them the Douglas Bullet treatment. the way that One Piece Stampede is literally the same story as Wano, in terms of like the final villain, is it's actually like, what the fuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Bullet does big mech coated in armament haki. Kaido does big flame dragon coated in armament haki. Luffy makes a bigger fist and punches with Duraneg. It hurts. Like,
By the way, when I was trying to work on the tier list, I was
Yep.
looking up like tier lists on YouTube, and I just kept getting like arc tier lists, and I watched a couple of them, and people are ranking, I don't know, like really high.
Wano.
Really high, yeah.
I do think Wano is one of the best arcs. Okay, no. Wano is high because it has some of the best moments in the entire series. Wano as a narrative isn't necessarily the best arc by a fair bit.
Yeah, that's the thing though, is that I reckon it's capping because it's like had such a build up, right?
Put it this way, right?
Okay, so like if Luffy fought Im at the very end of the series, it was like kind of a shit fight. It was kind of just like they're just both like big and strong and punching each other. Like it was just kind of like a meh fight. People would still be like, sickest fight ever, because it's the big finale.
It's the climax.
It's really cool. Yeah, everything's been leading up to it, yada yada yada, right? But and I think like that's the kind of thing that people look at Wano with. But I think if you more like objectively say like, was it a good arc? It's kind of like, well, no, not really.
I think it was
the reason for that is because Luffy didn't fight Big Mom.
No, I reckon it was a phenomenal arc. For it was like a solid 7 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah. It was alright.
It didn't deliver enough on what it set up. Being the longest arc in all of One Piece, it didn't utilize its pieces well enough, I think. It dragged on where it shouldn't have, and where it cut fat was where people wanted the story expanded. Right? And so what, going through, I'll list the positives and then I'll list the negatives from my perspective for this, right? Where it's like, positive, you had the first time in a long time that Luffy entered an arc and no one knew who he was. So it felt like the beginning of the story again, right?
Mm.
That was a good thing. It was like, Luffy's almost achieved this Yonko status. How can people not know who he is whenever he walks in a room? It was a narratively good choice, right? We had so many fun Supernova fights straight up at the beginning of Wano, right? Luffy and Law versus Hawkins. Luffy and Zoro versus Hawkins. Law versus Hawkins. Later on, we just got heaps of Supernova fights and they were fun, right? People we've been waiting on for ages, right? We got Kaido's introduction as a dragon, and the symbolism of a dragon and stuff like that, and how it was depicted in that, phenomenal. Also, the huge power gap of Kaido one-shotting Luffy was mind-blowing, and it was really great and really fun, and I think it was a net positive in the story at that point, right? Then in Act 2, we sort of drag a bit. We got Blackbeard's bounty, so we got the first Yonko bounty, right? We got the Reverie stuff still is technically tied in with Wano, so I know as a fan base we view those 10 chapters as separate, but at the same point in time it's if you get the volume releases, it's counted as Wano, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got the return of Marco and the remnants of the Whitebeard Pirates, or at least some of the remnants of the Whitebeard Pirates. You got Kid, you got Law, you got Kaido, you got Big Mom, you got all this great stuff. We got legend and lore and background about Zoro and his lineage. You had the legendary Odin flashback, where we got all 5 Yonko bounties, 6 including Whitebeard. We got the story of the Rocks Pirates. You got Odin's journey. You got He Laughed. You got Whitebeard, Mr. Gurara. You got Roger. Seeing Roger fight, even if it was just for a brief moment. Then you get you get the abolishment of the warlords, right? Then you get more and more hype with like the Topiropo being introduced, the numbers introduced and stuff like that, and like shit was just building up. You had Gear 5, you had Roof Piece. Like you said, those were potentially the 10 best chapters consecutively in One Piece, right? But the problem is, even though it probably had the highest highs out of any arc in the story, it had a fuck ton of lows.
I just think it had way more potential.
Yeah.
Like I don't look at Alabasta, for example, and I'm not even like amazing.
I don't think Alabasta's wasted. There's not a single moment wasted.
I don't look at Alabasta and go, "Oh, they should have done this."
Yeah.
I do that constantly for Wano.
Yeah. Even I believe me, I get what you mean. And partly it's because there's so many pieces to juggle, right? And we don't know what things were set up in Wano that haven't like come through. But it's like, dude, what about the Drunken Iron War? Do you remember that?
Yeah, true.
Like that was supposedly coming from Wano, and the Revs were looking into it, and nothing came of it.
Yeah.
You had Drake attacking villages, nothing came of it, right? You had the plans for the allies get leaked, and Yasui died, and it was all for nothing, because not only did the plan get leaked again, but Kanjuro was also the informant the entire time, and everyone knew there was an informant, right?
Yeah.
You had freaking big memes amnesia. Whoa, that was not a fun time to be a One Piece fan, was it?
This big meme in general during that time was a bit...
The dick tease and non-consensual lack of payoff for the Big Mom Pirates in Wano. If they weren't going to be part of the story, why hype them up as if they're going to be there?
Yeah.
And why do it multiple times? Right? The numbers were just a letdown. I think the fights in Onigashima as well, despite it being like a really long period of fighting, I felt like people were getting a bit fatigued from it. I felt like they didn't do enough fights, and they didn't do the fights well enough. Right?
That I actually agree with that. Weirdly enough, for a little bit there, it was pretty much just like jumping between fights, but it didn't feel that.
I would have loved to have seen something from the Supernova cruise doing something, because it makes the world feel so much more lived in. Even in the recent anime episode, they've actually started adding filler of that, right? Where
I actually think that's a good idea, though. I think like maybe even like cutting out a bit of fight and then using it as like a anime pad.
Yep.
Well, like you can like just saying to them, throw in a bunch of random fights. I don't care.
Do you know what the problem about that is?
Because it means that they don't have to have everything so like fillery in the anime. They can actually like move the story along.
Do you know where the anime's up to now?
What is it up to?
Luffy's back on the rooftop after having been taken out for the final fight.
Right. Oh yeah, true. Because I've been seeing clips of like coming back riding Momo and shit.
Yeah. But like the anime did this thing where it's like after Frankie defeated Sasaki, right? You had the Heart Pirates coming in and they were just taking out fodder, right? You had a great scene in the anime of them talking shit, being like, "Oh, don't get cocky just because you took down one of the Topiropo. You only took down one guy. There's still plenty more to fight while they're taking on the fodder, right?" And like Frankie's getting pissed, just like, "You did fucking nothing, you little shits." But there should have been more of that in the manga, I think, clearly. I think, like I said, the fact, like, the fights we got were all, like, 1 or 2 chapters, which is very Oda.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, yes, there were a lot of fights, but it's like, I felt like the fights themselves didn't really have an overarching story to them, if that makes sense. Outside of just, let's have a fight. I want.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Whereas, like, other fights normally have like that 3-act structure.
Like Frankie versus Senior Pink was like a good fight purely because of the story behind it.
Yes.
and the character interaction and the backstory and stuff that was given. But like Ninja Guy versus Earlobe Guy was a bit meh.
Yeah. Yeah,
It was
100%.
kind of funny, but that was about it.
Yeah, it's yeah, like look, it was heartbreaking, I'm not gonna lie. Like the fact that we had the Law Kid and Big Mom fight happen and we didn't see a single one of them using Haki in their fight together was like, what?
Yeah.
Like we still don't know if Kid can use armament. Like we know Kid has all three types of Haki, but we don't know if he can use armament to harden. You know what I mean? Do you know how weird that is?
It was weird.
Even looking at King and Queen, right? Queen we know can use black. Like Queen can use armament hardening. King we only ever saw him do it on his sword. He never used it on his body, which, mind you, he probably never developed it because he never needed it, being a Lunarian. You know what I mean? But it's like,
yeah.
Jack. We didn't see Jack use any Haki.
Yeah, I mean, Jack's just...
Yeah, but, like, think about how hyped up Jack was. And, like, how dirty he was done. Like, they didn't even need to be fancy with it. In the sense that it's like, they had the explanation of like, oh, once they go Sulong, they can beat him. That's fine. That's not a problem. The problem is, it's like, they still just like, just because they were going to do that, they didn't show anything from Jack.
Yeah.
It was...
It would have actually been really easy because, like, okay, if they just straight up said that, like made it seem pretty obvious that definitely there's a bit of like a hierarchy where like, you know, Queen and King are definitely above Jack, you know, like there's kind of like an order to it. Then they said, and then they had basically like Jack use a bunch of Haki and just seem kind of strong, but he still gets taken down because he literally fights all of the Minks in Sulong at the same time, which is fair. And then that's it. And then he gets taken out like that, and then it makes Jack seem way stronger, and by comparison, it makes Queen and King seem a lot stronger because they've shown to be above him, and then Jack has had a good feat, being that he took on like multiple Minks and did a pretty good job. You know, show a couple of scenes when he's using Haki and he's beating ass, but he's just getting overwhelmed by numbers.
Instead, do you know what we got for Jack against the Minks? With no Haki, Trunk alone, because he was just as an elephant this whole time, right? They like a few of them stabbed him, and he wiped out the entire Mink tribe's fighting force on his own with a small army.
Yeah.
That was just like, why even bring those pieces up there to say they're going to be useful if they were just going to get treated like that? You know what I don't know. Yeah. The whole Wano thing really like pissed me off because being the longest arc in the story, there were so many weeks where it was kind of like, it's build up, nothing's really happened yet. Dude, I didn't get to see Ryuma's grave in the manga. Why?
Yeah.
Where was my emotional Zoro moment? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. I don't know how to voice that now. Like the way Wano, because it's still a good arc. I just wouldn't say storytelling wise it's one of One Piece. Like it's not One Piece's best as like a complete story.
And I want to say there's a lot going on. You know, Oda's been doing this for a long ass time. He's due for like a week arc, and especially on an arc where like it's such high stakes and there's so much shit to do at once. I can understand. And he's also kind of like setting up for the final saga after it. I can kind of understand him dropping the ball a little
but
bit.
But they hyped it so much.
He literally said that he's been like planning this for like years. Like it's like the number one thing that he's been planning forever.
But then when we get to an arc that returns to form with Egghead, like Egghead's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Pacing's been great. Fights have been great. It's been fluid.
Yeah, true, actually. It has been. And the thing is that there isn't even really like a major enemy or issue so far. Like so far all the problems have been like reasonably minor.
Yeah.
Just been like threatening, like potentially scary.
Which is
not like I'm fighting a dragon god and I cannot handle him at all. Last time I fought him he one-shot me.
That just like that just has for me. It was a bit of a fumble in the bag, in that regard. You know what I mean?
The thing is, like, I would fully expect that Oda had like literally planned out everything.
Yeah.
Going into this arc, like, because he said that he's been planning it for so long, I wouldn't be surprised if he literally had a draft of every single chapter.
The first time we see a pink dragon and the Kozuki crest, right, is at the end of Alabaster. In a cover page, like one of the cover arts, and it's where like Oda's practicing drawing Wano attire. So he's been sitting on it, right? The first year the anime came out, one of the first OVAs that came out with that anime was Odin and Gold, right? Oh, Odin and Roger. So it's like he's known at least somewhat what he was gonna do for a long time. It's just like
here's the thing as well, is like this is the biggest arc in One Piece so far.
Yeah.
The biggest saga so far. End of the saga. And One Piece is the biggest anime/manga. Period.
Yep.
So I would like to be able to say after this arc that this is the best arc in all of Shonen. But I can't confidently say.
Oh, do you know what? I may have a different mindset if I read all post time skip to the end of Wano. If I have a big reread through. Because if you start reading from Fishman Island, building up to Wano, it may hit different. Because Wano itself may just feel like the climax, if that makes sense, instead of just another arc. But Wano as an arc, if you separate Wano and just look at Wano as an arc and stuff, originally Doflamingo was meant to be in Wano.
Yeah.
Like, I can kind of see that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Artistically, I would say my favorite arc in One Piece from an art style perspective is Skypiea, right? Narratively, I would throw a dart at. I love Alabasta. I love Skypiea. I don't personally, but I know how much people love Water 7 and his lobby, right? The Marineford saga, phenomenal from like a narrative standpoint. I even really love, on a reread now, start to finishing Dressrosa, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you could argue all of those are better than Wano narratively. And like I said, I loved the art in Wano because like the Japanese style was really fun and it was like kind of refreshing. You know what I mean? But at the same point in time, I wouldn't say like it was the most impressive art Oda's done in the story either. You know, so it's like I can't say it was the best narrative. I can't say it was the best drawn. I can just say like it had the best highs, but it also probably had the worst lows out of an arc outside of maybe Fishman Island.
My problem with the highs was the highs were almost already coming. Gear 5 was going to happen.
Yeah, the highs that came were stuff that we were waiting just to get confirmed.
Yeah.
It's not like it was like only could have happened in Wano. Whereas like even remember when we were talking at the climax of the fight, how I was just like, because we still didn't even get to read the poneglyphs. Like, do you know how much that pisses me off? Like Oda literally was like, here's 90% of the answers, but we're not going to let you know what they are because we've got to find out the rest of the story at the end. Eat shit, bye. It's like, you son of a bitch. Right? But, speaking of, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but if you get your hands on it, you should play through One Piece Odyssey. Right?
I don't think I'm going to.
You don't think you're going to?
I have time. No.
Do you care if I tell you things about it then?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh.
I want to play the Harry Potter game, but I don't think I'm going to have time to play that either, so I'm just not going to get it. I don't want to waste the money.
The plot spoilers for One Piece Odyssey, actually, I'm posting part of my playthrough of it on YouTube this week, but also I've done the first 3 playthrough sections of it on Twitch. Link in the description. Haha, there's a plug for you. But the premise is essentially they're on an island called Warford, and I'm not too far into the game yet, right? But it seems like there's a massive Death Star above the island, above the clouds that you can't see, right? And the island is straight up like one of the ancient kingdom islands.
Right.
With like advanced tech, including what seemingly looks like multiple infinite energy sources that works off biotech. So like there's a character in it that doesn't have a devil fruit that can remove concepts from your body just because on the island, like the island registers their DNA, and it's like talked about as if it's like the 4th ancient weapon.
Interesting.
Definitely, like, and again, I'm not too far into it, so I don't have any answers. This is just like the basic premise set to you at the beginning of the game, and like I'm just playing through it at the moment. I'm just like, this is fucking phenomenal. It is probably narratively my favorite One Piece game so far.
Yeah, cool.
But like just the concepts that they've got there, it's just had me just like, because I was going through and I was like, you know, being detail oriented as I'm going through, because I'm like exploring a little bit, and I was like looking at stuff and I was like, oh, that looks like something from a Sky Island. Then like a minute later, like Robin would be like, what the hell? There's stuff from a Sky Island here. How did that get here? And I was like, hey, I fucking knew it. I felt so fucking vindicated, eh? But yo, all over the island, they've got the you know, the vast god statue that was in Sky Island.
Yeah,
they got statues of that littered all throughout the place. One of the main characters looks like his Wiper's distant cousin, eh? Like 100%.
Cool.
It is an interesting read so far, and the Gorosei are the way the Gorosei are talking about it, they, without being on the island, are somehow knowing everything that's happening on the island. So it may be game logic, or there may be some BS that they've got like high tech surveillance anywhere in the world. Right. And the whole premise is they're like starting to send Marines after me at the moment to try and stop me from releasing this like ancient weapon. And they've got things called Guardians, which I've seen 2 Guardians so far, the Fire and the Lightning Guardian, which seemingly are just like an infinite energy source inside of like a semi-robotic shell.
Sounds wild as fuck.
Yeah, dude, yeah. It's been weird but amazing to story-wise to go through it. Definitely a really fun campaign game so far. If for anything else, strictly because there's a guy in it called Adio that is just like the coolest marksman I've seen in One Piece in a minute. Dual pistols, but he like uses the pistols like a sniper while doing acrobatics. So it's pretty much just like the better version of Izo. You know what I mean? It's like Izo mixed with Killer. Just like doing flips and shit. Dude, I love it. I love it. It's fun so far. Alright. That being said, we've been going for 2 hours. My back is killing me. I gotta go chill out and rest up for the day. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm all good.
Any theories for next chapter? I reckon we're just... I reckon next chapter... Ooh. I didn't talk about this concept, but I had a semi-thought on this, actually. So, Vegapunk's missing at the moment. Probably not a shot in hell, but I will point out Shiryu can turn invisible, and Shiryu was not seen with the rest of the Blackbeard pirates, and Shiryu, formerly working for the world government, would know where world government facilities are.
That's true.
So, and until I see that man pop up again, he's invisible in every panel.
It would actually be really funny if he was there the whole time.
Yeah,
they just don't show him.
Like that could be like why Vegapunk's disappeared. Imagine if he just got kidnapped, but not by the Straw Hats. And imagine that he gets like the chapter ends with Morgan's talking about putting out a story about Straw Hat kidnapping Vegapunk. Vegapunk gets kidnapped by Blackbeard, not Luffy, but the story comes out that Luffy kidnapped Vegapunk.
Yeah.
And then Blackbeard's just like, what the fuck is this bullshit? I want the credit. It was me. It was me and my men. You know what I mean? When Post Wano happened, and like Law and Kid were like, I want the credit. Why did you get the bounty? Why are you a Yonko? We all did it.
Yeah.
That'd be funny. Yeah, alright. We'll wrap the stream up there, shall we?
Sounds good.
Alright, peace. New chapter coming out obviously this Friday, so I'll do my live reaction on Friday. Bunch of other videos coming out every day this week, so be sure to check that shit out. Eggs for Brekkie, say goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Until the next chapter of One Piece, or until the next video of mine you watch, whatever it is you're here for, peace, nothing but love, nothing but respect. Have a damn good day. Goodbye.